They say love makes you stupid, but nobody tells you how smart stupid can look when you're desperate enough to believe it. I thought I was buying a future. Turns out I was just renting hope at $22,000 a month. Sometimes the most expensive lesson you'll ever learn is that loneliness has a price tag, and someone out there knows exactly what yours is. If our stories resonate with you, don't forget to like, comment, and tell us where you're watching from. This story was shared with us by one of our longtime viewers, and he wanted his experience heard. I used to think I had life figured out. 62 years old, retired electrician from Phoenix, owned my house outright. Decent pension coming in. Then my wife of 28 years decided she wanted to find herself and took half of everything with her when she left. The divorce was finalized 6 months ago, and my kids, well, they moved to Seattle and Portland for work. They call on birthdays and holidays if I'm lucky. Retirement feels more like exile when you're spending it alone. The house is too quiet, the days too long. I tried the usual things, coffee shops, senior centers, volunteering at the animal shelter. But everyone my age seemed to already have their circles, their routines, their people. I felt like I was trying to join a club that was already full. That's how I ended up on dating apps. First the local ones, Match, eHarmony, all that. American women my age seemed so complicated, carrying decades of baggage, wanting to know about my credit score before they'd grab coffee. I'm not saying they were wrong to be cautious, but every conversation felt like a job interview where both of us were secretly hoping the other person would fail. Then I discovered international dating sites, Filipino Cupid specifically. I'd heard guys at the hardware store talking about Filipino women, how they were traditional, family-oriented, appreciated a man who could provide. Sounded better than passing through profiles of women who listed adventure and travel as their main interests when I could barely afford a vacation to Sedona. It was 2 a.m. on a Tuesday when I found her profile. Precious. 29 years old, from Pasig in the Philippines, nursing student, single mother to an 8-year-old daughter named Mika. Her photos showed a beautiful woman with kind eyes, wearing scrubs in one picture, graduation cap in another, holding her daughter in a third. Her bio said she was looking for a good man, to build something real with, someone who understood that love meant supporting each other through life's challenges. Her first message came 3 hours after I liked her profile. "Hello, Thomas. I saw your profile and you seem like a genuine person. I don't usually message men first, but something about your smile made me brave. I hope we can talk and get to know each other. Have a blessed day." Simple, sweet, nothing pushy. I stared at that message for 20 minutes, my finger hovering over the reply button, not knowing that moment would cost me everything I'd worked for my entire life. I wrote back immediately. "Hi, Precious, thank you for reaching out. I'd love to get to know you better. Tell me about your studies and your daughter." Her response came within the hour, and suddenly we were talking like we'd known each other for years. She told me about her nursing program at a local college, how she'd always dreamed of helping people heal. She shared photos of her studying, textbooks spread across a small table, her daughter doing homework beside her. "Mika is my world," she wrote. "Everything I do is for her future. Sometimes it's hard being a single mother, but I believe God has a plan for us." She asked about my work, my life in Arizona, whether I'd ever been married. When I told her about the divorce, she didn't judge or probe. She just said, "I'm sorry you went through that pain. You deserve to be loved properly." Our first video call happened on day 4. She was even more beautiful in motion, her voice soft and musical with that Filipino accent that made everything sound gentle. She showed me around her small apartment, a living room that doubled as Mika's study space, a tiny kitchen where she was preparing dinner. Then Mika appeared on screen, shy but polite, waving and saying, "Hello, Kuya Thomas," in her little girl voice. "She calls you Kuya," Precious explained, smiling. "It means big brother. She already likes you." I felt something warm spread through my chest. When was the last time a child had looked at me with anything but obligation? We talked for 2 hours that first call. She asked about my retirement, what I did with my days, whether I missed having someone to take care of. I found myself telling her things I hadn't said out loud since the divorce. how empty the house felt, how I'd started eating cereal for ice. Dinner because cooking for one seemed pointless, how I sometimes went whole days without speaking to another human being. "You shouldn't be alone," she said softly. "A man like you with so much love to give. In Philippines, we believe family is everything. A woman should make her man feel like a king, and a man should protect and provide for his family. That's how love works." The next 3 weeks felt like digital heaven. Precious sent good morning texts every day with prayer hands emojis and Bible verses. "Good morning, my dear Thomas. May God bless your day with peace and joy." She'd share photos throughout her day, studying at the library, picking up Mika from school, cooking dinner. Simple domestic scenes that made me feel included in her life. Our video calls became daily events I looked forward to more than anything else. She'd show me her schoolwork, let me help quiz her on medical terminology. Mika would appear sometimes telling me about her school projects or showing me drawings she'd made. Precious would smile and say, "She's drawing our family now. Look, that's you with the cowboy hat." She asked about my dreams for the future, and I found myself sharing fantasies I'd never voiced before. Maybe moving to the Philippines, opening a small electrical repair business, having a real family again. "You would love it here," she said during one call. "Life is simple, people are kind, and you could help so many families with your skills. Mika and I would take such good care of you." The conversations felt deeper than anything I'd had in my marriage. My ex-wife and I had stopped really talking years before the divorce. We'd discuss schedules, bills, what needed fixing around the house. But Precious wanted to know about my thoughts, my feelings, my hopes. She remembered details from previous conversations, asked follow-up questions, made me feel heard. "In Philippines, we have a saying," she told me one evening. "The heart that loves is always young. You make my heart feel young again, Thomas." I never thought I would feel this way about someone I haven't met in person yet. I told her I felt the same way. At 62, I was falling in love like a teenager, staying up late to text, checking my phone every few minutes for her messages. Then, almost casually during week 3, she mentioned stress about school fees. "My tuition payment is due next week, and I'm a little worried," she said during one of our calls. "If I can't pay, I might have to take a semester off. But don't worry about me, dear Thomas. God will provide somehow." She changed the subject quickly, asking about my day, but I could hear the worry underneath her cheerful voice. The way she brought up money wasn't direct. She never asked for help outright. Instead, she'd mentioned being stressed about school fees, worried she might have to drop out and disappoint her daughter. "Mika is so proud that her mama is going to be a nurse," she said one evening, tears in her eyes. "I don't know how to tell her I might have to quit school. She draws pictures of me in my white uniform, says she wants to help people like Mama will." I could hear the genuine distress in her voice during our calls. She'd try to sound cheerful, but there were moments when the worry broke through. "I worked so hard to get into this program," she said. "If I drop out now, I might never get another chance. The waiting list is so long." I found myself offering to help before she could ask. "How much is the tuition payment?" I asked during one particularly emotional call. Her reaction seemed genuine. Shock, then tears, then protests that she couldn't possibly accept help from me. "No, Thomas, I could never ask that of you. We're not even... I mean, you don't owe me anything. This is my problem to solve." But I insisted. $800 for tuition wasn't much for me, especially spread across my monthly budget, and helping someone I cared about, someone who was working so hard, to build a better life for herself and her daughter. It felt good. It felt like being needed again. "I'll pay you back as soon as I graduate and get my nursing job," she promised through tears. "With interest. I'm so grateful, Thomas. You're my guardian angel. I don't know what I did to deserve your kindness." Her relief was overwhelming to witness. She cried for 10 minutes on video call, thanking me over and over, promising this was just a loan that she'd never forget my generosity. I sent the money through Western Union the next day. Her gratitude felt like sunlight. She sent me a photo of herself at the remittance center, holding the receipt, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for believing in me," she wrote, "for believing in us. I will make you proud, I promise." That night she called me crying happy tears. "Mika wanted to talk to you," she said. and suddenly the little girl was on screen saying, "Thank you, Kuya Thomas, for helping Mama. Mama says you're going to be my new papa." The words hit me harder than I expected. When was the last time anyone had needed me like this? Over the next month, small emergencies kept arising. Her landlord demanded an extra deposit after a pipe burst in the building, $300. Then Mika came down with a high fever that wouldn't break, requiring expensive antibiotics and a private doctor visit because the public clinic was overcrowded, $500. Then Precious's phone was stolen on her way home from school, and she needed a new one to keep in touch with me and coordinate her clinical rotations, $400. Each crisis seemed legitimate. She'd send photos as proof. Medical, receipts with Mika's name on them, rental agreements showing the required deposit, pictures of the new phone she bought with my help. "I hate asking you for help," she'd say during each emergency, "but I don't have anyone else. My family is so poor, and my friends are all students like me. You're the only person who can save us." I found myself becoming her problem solver, her hero. Every time she called with tears in her voice, describing some new financial emergency, I'd swoop in with a solution. It felt incredible to be needed like that. During my marriage, I'd felt like a failure most of the time, never making enough money, never saying the right thing, never being the husband my wife wanted. But with Precious, I was the answer to every problem. "You're such a good man," she'd tell me after each transfer went through. "The kind of man who takes care of his family. In Philippines, we have such respect for men like you. You're going to be such a good father to Mika, such a good husband to me." The promises felt real because they came with immediate gratitude, with photos of the solutions my money provided, with video calls where I could see the relief in her face. These smaller amounts, 300 here, 500 there, felt manageable. They were building my confidence in her honesty, in our relationship. She always promised to repay me when she graduated and got her nursing job. "I'll have a good salary then," she'd explain. "Nurses make good money in Philippines. If they work at private hospitals, I'll pay back every peso with interest." By the end of that month, I calculated I'd sent about $3,000 total, but it felt like an investment in our future together. Every photo she sent of herself studying, every message about her clinical rotations, every video call where Mika would show me her school projects, it all felt like I was building something real. 4 months into our relationship, I made a decision that felt completely natural at the time. I was going to surprise Precious with a proposal during one of our video calls. I'd bought a ring online, not too expensive but elegant, a simple solitaire that I had shipped to her address, planning to ask her to open the package during our call so I could ask her to marry me when she saw it. The morning the package was supposed to arrive, I was nervous as a teenager. I'd rehearsed what I was going to say, how I was going to transition from casual conversation to the proposal. When she answered the video call that evening, I could barely contain my excitement. "I sent you something," I said, trying to sound casual. "A little surprise. It should have arrived today." Her eyes widened, and she checked with someone off camera, in rapid Tagalog. Then she was back holding a small package, looking curious and excited. "What is this, Thomas? You didn't need to send me anything." But she was smiling, and I could see she was pleased. I watched as she opened the box, and her reaction was everything I'd hoped for. Her hands flew to her mouth, her eyes filled with tears, and she just stared at the ring for a long moment. "Thomas," she whispered, "is this... are you..." She couldn't finish the sentence. I took a deep breath and said the words I'd been practicing. "Precious, will you marry me? I know we haven't met in person yet, but I love you. I love Mika. I want us to be a real family." She broke down sobbing, covering her face with her hands. For a terrifying moment, I thought she was going to say no. Then she looked up at me through tears and nodded. "Yes, Thomas. Yes, of course. Yes, I love you too. I love you so much." She slipped the ring on her finger and it fit perfectly. She held her hand up to the camera, the diamond catching the light from her apartment. "It's beautiful. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever owned." That call lasted 3 hours. We talked about everything. When I'd visit to meet her in person, where we'd live after the wedding, how we'd blend our families. She was concerned about her family meeting me, wanting everything to be perfect. "My family is very traditional," she explained. "They'll want to make sure you're serious about me, about Mika. In our culture, when a man marries a woman, he becomes responsible for her whole family's well-being." I told her I understood and respected that. I started booking flights for 2 months out, researching apartments in Pasig where we could live together after the wedding. The future felt bright and planned and real. "I want you to meet my family properly," she said. "Not just video calls, but really meet them. They're so excited about you, but they want to prepare. Maybe we could help them fix up our family home. A little bit. It's not much, but they want it to be nice for when you visit, and they want to throw a proper engagement party so the whole neighborhood can meet you." The idea of making a good impression on my future in-laws felt important. "Whatever you think is best," I told her. "I want your family to know how serious I am about you and Mika. What kind of help do they need?" Her smile was radiant. "You're already being such a good son to them, Thomas. They're going to love you so much." Precious explained that her family's house needed repairs before my visit. The roof leaked during the rainy season, the bathroom needed updating, and they wanted to repaint the walls for the engagement party. She sent photos of the modest concrete house where she'd grown up. I could see water stains on the ceiling, cracked tiles in the bathroom, peeling paint on the exterior walls. "The contractors estimated about $4,000 for everything," she said apologetically. "I know it's a lot of money, but they want everything to be perfect for your visit. My father worked construction his whole life before he passed, and Mama wants the house to look like he would have wanted it to when meeting his daughter's future husband." $4,000 seemed reasonable for making my future in-laws home livable and creating a proper space for our engagement celebration. I felt honored that they wanted to prepare so carefully for my arrival. This wasn't just about impressing me, it was about showing respect for what we were building together. "Send me the details," I told her. "I want to help make this perfect." The money transfer went through the next day, and almost immediately I started receiving update photos. Workers on the roof replacing damaged tiles, new fixtures being installed in the bathroom, her relatives painting walls and hanging decorations. They'd even made a banner that said, "Welcome Kuya Thomas," in bright blue letters. Her family members appeared in the photos, her mother, 2 brothers, various aunts and cousins, all smiling and holding up signs welcoming me to the family. "They're so grateful," Precious told me during our calls. "Mama keeps crying and saying she can't believe her daughter found such a generous man. She prays for you every night now." The progress updates came regularly. Photos of the repaired roof, the renovated bathroom with new tiles and fixtures, the freshly painted living room where they'd hang family photos that included me. Everything seemed legitimate and filled me with anticipation for finally meeting the woman I'd fallen in love with and her family who already seemed to embrace me as their own. "They keep asking when you're coming," Precious laughed during one call. "My nephew keeps practicing English phrases to talk to you. He wants to ask you about America, about your work. They've never met an American before, but they're so excited. You're going to be like a celebrity when you arrive." I felt like I was building something real, something lasting. Every photo of the house improvements, every message from Precious about her family's excitement, every video call where Mika would show me the room they were preparing for me, it all felt like coming home to a family I'd never had, even during my marriage. 3 weeks before my planned trip to the Philippines, everything changed with a single phone call. I was getting ready for bed when my phone rang. Precious was crying so hard I could barely understand her words. "Thomas, something terrible has happened. Mika is in the hospital. They think it's her appendix. They need to operate tonight." The panic in her voice was real. I could hear hospital sounds in the background, announcements over intercoms, beeping machines, hushed conversations. In Filipino, "The doctor says we need $5,000 for the surgery," she sobbed. "Philippine insurance doesn't cover everything, and they won't operate without payment up front. I don't know what to do. I can't lose my baby, Thomas. I can't lose her." She sent photos from what looked like a hospital room. Mika lying in a bed with IV tubes in her arm, looking pale and small under white sheets. Medical equipment surrounded the bed, and I could see other patients in the background. The photos looked authentic, taken with the immediate urgency of a mother documenting her child's medical crisis. "How long do you have?" I asked, already pulling up my banking app. "The surgery needs to happen in the next few hours," she cried. "The doctor says her appendix could burst if we wait. Please, Thomas, I know it's a lot of money, but I don't have anyone else. My family doesn't have this kind of money. You're the only one who can save her." I didn't hesitate. $5,000 transferred through Express International Wire Transfer, arriving in her account within 2 hours. Her gratitude was overwhelming. She called me from the hospital afterward, exhausted but relieved. "The surgery went perfectly," she whispered. "Mika is sleeping now, but the doctor says she'll be fine. You saved my daughter's life, Thomas. How do I ever repay something like that?" "You don't," I told her. "That's what family does for each other. I'm going to be Mika's stepfather. This is what fathers do." She cried again, but these were tears of gratitude and love. "I promise you, when we're married and I'm working as a nurse, I'll spend my whole life taking care of you the way you've taken care of us. You're a hero, Thomas. My hero." The next day, she sent update photos from the hospital. Mika looking better, smiling weakly at the camera, eating ice cream. "She keeps asking for Papa Thomas," Precious said. "She says when you come visit, she's going to make you a special drawing to thank you for saving her life." I felt like a provider, a protector, the kind of man who could handle any crisis his family faced. With 1 week remaining before my flight to Manila, Precious approached me with what she called her biggest shame. We were on a video call, and she looked more distressed than I'd ever seen her. She'd been quiet during our recent conversations, and I'd attributed it to stress from Mika's surgery and preparation for my visit. "Thomas, I need to tell you something I've been hiding," she said, tears already streaming down her face. "I'm so ashamed, but there's debt from my father's medical bills before he died. I thought I could handle it myself, but the collectors came to the house yesterday with legal papers." She showed me documents that appeared to be in Filipino, with official-looking stamps and signatures. "They're demanding $10,000 immediately, or they'll seize the house. The house we just fixed up for your visit. The house where Mama raised us, where my father died. I'd rather call off your visit and marry someone local than ask you for more help, but they gave us 1 week. The thought of our plans falling apart felt devastating. I'd already invested so much, emotionally, financially, mentally. I'd told people at home about Precious, shown them photos, talked about moving to the Philippines. My flight was booked, my bags were packed. My retirement dreams were tied up in this woman and her family. "This is the last time," she promised through sobs. "After this, there will be no more emergencies, no more problems. Once we're married and I graduate nursing school, I'll have a good job. We'll be financially stable. But if we lose the house, Mama has nowhere to go. She's too old to start over. $10,000 would bring my total to over $22,000. It was most of my liquid savings, money I'd planned to use for our new life together." But Precious seemed genuinely distraught at having to ask, and she'd proven trustworthy with every previous transfer. The money always went where she said it would, with photos and documentation to prove it. "I'll transfer it tomorrow morning," I told her. Her relief was immediate and overwhelming. She spent 20 minutes thanking me, promising to spend her entire life making me happy, swearing this was the final obstacle before our new life together. "You've saved my daughter, my family, my mother's home. I will be the best wife to you. Thomas, the most grateful, loving wife any man ever had." The money went through without a hitch. Precious sent confirmation photos, official-looking receipts, documents being signed, her mother crying with relief and gratitude. Everything seemed legitimate, and I felt like I'd just secured our future together. 1 more week, and I'd finally meet the woman who'd made me feel more needed and valued than I had in decades. I packed my bags with excitement that felt almost manic. 2 suitcases full of gifts for Precious and Mika, electronics that were cheaper in America, clothes in their sizes, toys and books for my future stepdaughter. I'd researched apartments in Pasig, learned basic Filipino phrases, even bought a guidebook about wedding customs in the Philippines. The morning of my departure, I sent precious photos from Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. Finally leaving for you, my love. Can't wait to hold you in my arms. Her response came quickly but seemed shorter than usual. Safe travels, dear Thomas. Can't wait to see you. No prayer hands emoji, no lengthy message about God's blessings, no excitement about introducing me to her family. Maybe she was nervous. About finally meeting in person, I reasoned. That was natural after 4 months of digital relationship. During my layover in Los Angeles, I texted her updates about my journey. Boarding my flight to Tokyo now, thinking of you and Mika. Her response came hours later. Okay, dear. Something felt different, but I chalked it up to pre-meeting anxiety. Maybe she was busy preparing for my arrival, coordinating with her family, making final arrangements for our reunion. During my 14-hour flight to Tokyo, I drafted a dozen text messages to her, deleting most of them, not wanting to seem needy or impatient. During my layover in Tokyo, I tried calling her. The call went straight to voicemail. I sent messages asking for her exact address and pickup arrangements. Should I take a taxi to your apartment, or are you picking me up at the airport? So excited to finally see you in person, my beautiful bride-to-be. The silence started feeling heavier. By the time I boarded my final flight from Tokyo to Manila, 12 hours had passed without any response from her. My mind raced between excitement and a fear I couldn't yet name. Maybe her phone was dead. Maybe she was sleeping. Maybe she was as nervous as I was and needed space to prepare emotionally. But as the plane took off for its final approach into my new life, that knot in my stomach kept growing. I stared out the window at the lights of Tokyo disappearing below us, trying to convince myself that everything was fine, that silence didn't mean anything, that love was waiting for me on the other side of this flight. I landed at Ninoy Aquino International Airport in Manila at 6 a.m., exhausted but still hopeful. The humidity hit me like a wall when I stepped outside, and the chaos of Filipino traffic and vendors felt overwhelming. But I was here. I'd made it to the country where my future wife was waiting. I sent precious messages with photos of my arrival. Me at baggage claim, me in the taxi line, me holding up a sign that said, "Hello, Philippines." The messages showed as delivered, but unread. I tried calling again, still straight to voicemail. "Hi, it's me. I'm here in Manila. Just need to know where to meet you. Call me back when you get this." Hours passed with no response. I took a taxi to the address she'd given me in Pasig City, my heart pounding with each kilometer. The driver spoke limited English, but he seemed to know the area. "You visiting girlfriend?" he asked with a knowing smile. "Filipino ladies, very beautiful, very good wife." I nodded, too nervous to make conversation. The address led to an empty lot next to a small convenience store. No house, no apartment building, no sign that anyone named Precious had ever lived there. I showed the lot to my taxi driver, confused. "This is the address," I said, showing him my phone. He shrugged. "Maybe you have wrong street number?" I walked into the convenience store, my Spanish decent enough to communicate with the owner who spoke some English. I showed him photos from our video calls, the apartment where Precious lived, the backgrounds I'd seen during our conversations. "Do you know this woman? She lives around here somewhere." The store owner studied the photos carefully, then shook his head. "Could be anywhere in Metro Manila," he said. "Many apartments look same. Very sorry, sir." He seemed genuinely sympathetic but couldn't help. I spent the day hiring a local guide, visiting different neighborhoods in Pasig, showing Precious's photo to strangers on the street. Everyone was polite but unhelpful. "Beautiful lady," they'd say, studying her photo. But no, sorry, don't know. Hurt? As evening fell, I found myself in a budget hotel room in Manila, staring at my phone, the silence becoming deafening. I tried reaching her through Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, the dating app where we'd met. Everything had been deactivated or deleted. Desperate and unable to sleep, I did something I should have done months earlier. I began investigating online, reverse searching Precious's photos using Google Images. What I found made my stomach drop. Several of her photos appeared on other dating profiles with different names: Maria from Cebu, Angel from Davao, Jenny from Quezon City. The same beautiful woman, the same nursing student story, The same single mother background. The hospital. Photos of Mika appeared on a Filipino medical crowdfunding website from 2 years earlier, used to raise money for a completely different child surgery. The nursing school graduation picture was actually a stock photo from a university's marketing materials. Even the family photos with the Welcome Kuya Thomas signs, I found identical images on a scammer awareness website, with the signs digitally altered for different victim names. I felt sick watching my entire relationship dissolve into lies. Every conversation, every video call, every emotional moment had been manufactured. The woman I'd fallen in love with didn't exist, at least not as I knew her. Someone had been playing a role, following a script, manipulating my emotions with professional precision. I contacted Filipino Cupid support, but they said the account had been deleted, and they couldn't provide information about the user. I tried reaching out to others who might have been scammed, posting in expat Facebook groups with warnings about the photos I'd discovered. Within hours, several men came forward with similar stories, different names, same photos, same financial emergencies, same disappearing act. The pattern was identical every time. Months of relationship building, gradually increasing financial requests, a final large sum demanded right before the planned meeting, then complete disappearance. I realized I'd been part of an elaborate, well-practiced operation designed to target lonely Western men looking for love in the Philippines. I spent 3 more days in Manila, partly hoping for a miracle, partly unable to face going home to the truth. I hired a private investigator recommended by the hotel concierge, a middle-aged Filipino man who spoke perfect English and seemed familiar with romance scam cases. "This is very common," he told me matter-of-factly. Organized groups, usually based in Manila, use stolen photos and create fake profiles. They target divorced Western men, usually older, usually lonely. The person you were talking to was probably a man, possibly several different people working in shifts. He showed me how these operations worked. Teams of people using stolen photos, scripted conversations based on psychological profiles of their targets, fake emergencies designed to create urgency and emotional manipulation, the medical emergencies, family crises, tuition payments, all standard elements of the romance scam playbook. The woman in the photos might be real, he explained, but she probably has no idea her pictures are being used this way. Often the photos are stolen from social media accounts, sometimes from modeling portfolios or even medical websites. The investigator was sympathetic, but brutally honest about my chances of recovery. "The money is gone, sir. These operations move funds quickly through multiple accounts, then convert to cash or cryptocurrency. I had to confront the hardest truth. I hadn't just lost money, I'd lost myself. I'd been so desperate for connection that I'd ignored red flags, rationalized inconsistencies, and built a fantasy around someone who never existed. The signs had been there from the beginning. The immediate emotional intimacy, the rapid escalation of financial needs, the perfect responses to my psychological vulnerabilities. Every video call had been staged in generic apartment settings. Every crisis had followed the same pattern: urgent deadline, emotional distress, grateful relief when I sent money. Even Mika, the sweet little girl who'd called me Papa Thomas, had probably been a child actor paid to appear in videos, her medical emergency. Just another prop in the elaborate performance. I packed my unused engagement gifts, jewelry I'd bought for Precious, toys for Mika, electronics I'd planned to give her family. The weight of my luggage felt like shame made physical. I was returning to Phoenix with nothing but debt, and the terrible knowledge that everything I'd felt, everything I'd planned, had been built on lies. The flight home was the longest 20 hours of my life. I kept checking my phone, hoping against logic that maybe Precious would message me with some explanation, some reason for the silence that would make sense of everything. But the silence stretched on as permanent and final as death. Back in Phoenix, I had to face the practical consequences of my emotional investment. I'd emptied my retirement savings account, maxed out 2 credit cards, and borrowed against my pension to fund what I now knew was an elaborate scam. My financial advisor, a patient man who'd helped me plan for retirement, was sympathetic but blunt about my situation. "You're looking at several more years of work to recover financially," he said, spreading out the numbers on his desk. "The retirement you'd planned, the travel, the comfortable lifestyle, that's gone now. We're essentially starting over." The words hit me like physical blows. At 62, I was financially where I'd been at 40, but with fewer years to rebuild. Worse than the money was explaining to my children what had happened. My daughter Sarah was angry about my stupidity, as she called it. "Dad, how could you be so naive? Didn't you think it was suspicious that she kept asking for money?" My son Michael was worried about my mental state, suggesting therapy and asking if I needed to move in with him temporarily. Their reactions stung because they reflected my own self-judgment. How had I been so blind? How had a man who'd worked with electricity for 40 years, who understood systems and circuits and logical connections, been so easily deceived by emotional manipulation? The isolation of being scammed was unlike anything I'd experienced. The shame felt toxic, eating away at my self-respect and confidence. People looked at me with pity or judgment when I explained what had happened. Some were sympathetic. Others clearly thought I deserved what happened for being foolish enough to send money to someone I'd never met. I joined online support groups for romance scam victims and discovered my story was depressingly common. Men my age, lonely after divorce or death of a spouse, targeted by sophisticated operations that understood exactly how to exploit emotional vulnerabilities. The stories were virtually identical. Months of relationship building, gradual financial requests, final large sum, then disappearance. "They study us," one man explained during a video support group meeting. "They know we're lonely, financially stable and emotionally available. They create profiles designed to appeal to our specific psychological needs. It's not really about the money initially. It's about making us feel needed and valued again." The support groups helped me understand that I wasn't uniquely stupid or naive. The people running these operations were professionals who understood human psychology better than most therapists. They'd identified a vulnerable population, older, divorced men, and developed systematic methods to exploit our emotional needs for profit. 6 months later, I'm still rebuilding, not just financially but emotionally. The scam worked because it gave me what I'd been missing after my divorce, feeling needed, valued, and loved. Precious, or whoever was behind that persona, understood my emotional needs better than I understood them myself. I'm back to work part-time, doing electrical repairs for neighbors and small businesses around Phoenix. The work keeps my hands busy and brings in enough money to slowly pay down the debt I accumulated during those 4 months of digital romance. My therapist, a kind woman who specializes in financial abuse and elder fraud, has helped me understand that what happened to me wasn't about stupidity. It was about exploitation of fundamental human needs. "Romance scammers are psychological professionals," she explained during one of our sessions. "They understand loneliness, attachment theory, and emotional manipulation better than most people with psychology degrees. They target the exact vulnerabilities that make us human, our need for connection, purpose, and love. I've learned to recognize the difference between genuine connection and manufactured affection. Real relationships develop slowly, with inconsistencies and imperfections. They include mundane conversations about boring topics, moments of silence that aren't dramatic, disagreements that get resolved through compromise. The fairy tale perfection of my relationship with Precious should have been my biggest red flag. I'm slowly reconnecting with local friends and activities I'd abandoned during my 4 months of digital obsession. The senior center I'd dismissed as full of circles has welcomed me into their woodworking group. The animal shelter where I'd volunteered before meeting Precious was happy to have me back walking dogs and helping with adoption events. The loneliness that made me vulnerable to the scam is still there, but I'm learning healthier ways to address it. Instead of seeking validation through romantic fantasy, I'm finding purpose through community service and rebuilding relationships with my children. Sarah and Michael have both made efforts to call more frequently, and I'm planning a visit to Seattle to meet my grandson properly. I still think about Precious sometimes, or rather, I think about the person I believed she was. The love I felt was real, even though its target was fiction. The grief I'm processing isn't just about lost money, but about the death of a dream, the end of hope I'd invested in completely. My therapist says this is normal, that victims of romance scams often mourn the relationship as if it had been real, because emotionally it was. The hardest lesson I've learned is about the relationship between desperation and vulnerability. I wasn't targeted because I was stupid or weak. I was targeted because I was isolated and hopeful. The scammers found me when I was most open to connection, most willing to believe in the possibility of late-life love, most ready to invest in someone else's dreams. If you're listening to this story and you're in a similar situation, widowed, divorced, lonely, maybe talking to someone online who seems too perfect, please learn from my mistake. Real love doesn't come with financial emergencies. Real partners don't disappear when they get your money. Real relationships can wait for in-person meetings and don't require constant financial rescuing. The scam isn't really about money, though. Money is what they take. It's about exploiting the very human need for love, purpose, and connection. They profit from loneliness, and in a world where more older adults are isolated than ever before, business is apparently booming. I urge anyone listening to this to find those needs met in real communities. With real people you can touch and see and verify, before desperation makes you vulnerable to digital predators who understand exactly how much hope costs and what loneliness is worth. $22,500, apparently. That's what it cost me to learn that love can't be bought, no matter how willing you are to pay for it.